Hey everybody, it's Greg LaBeouf and welcome to another episode of Awaken, the ProtectR Within. Listen, I just jumped in my car. I'm about to head out and do some errands, but I thought I'd jump on real quick and just share a real cool concept with you. It really is about the starting line and finding your start point.
So the big question was this: what do good people do when a society's laws and institutions fail to keep them safe from aggression and violence? How do you get through a growing number of angry, hateful, aggressive people and still remain physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and positive? That was the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Greg LaBeouf, and welcome to Awaken the Protector Within.
Okay, so I said that today's episode is about finding your start point. One of the things that kind of just been a thought that's bouncing around in my head the last few days, and I thought I'd share it with you today, is that over 25 years and hundreds, maybe even into the thousands of people that we've worked with, it is interesting that every single person, because we're all unique, we all have a different start point. And one of the reasons why I started this podcast and why I, did a tactical tip series where I shared different, stories and different tactical tips and different, concepts and strategies, and why I'm on Facebook, just really my only purpose for being on any platform of social media or for really talking to anybody about what I do really isn't about promoting or marketing my business. It is about connecting with people and helping other individuals figure out where their start point is, where the starting line is for them. You see, the interesting thing about this is that I often share stories, and I'll share stories about how violence and aggression has affected my life. And that started, when I was really young and experienced being bullied at school. And I would personally say that I don't think the bullying was super severe. It was isolated cases over a number of different years. And I think most people have experienced this. For me, those incidents were traumatic at the time. They had an effect on me. And then as you get into your teen years, you experience confrontation and experience aggression and tormenting, again, like a lot of people probably would. And then in 1993, I had an extremely violent assault, and that was a definite catalyst. That was what I call a TSN turning point, which is, basically a sports analogy, that is where the game shifted for me. That is where my life's course was dramatically altered. And I share stories, and I'm trying to be very open and honest with the effects and how I became a victim. And if I really went deep into my story in that violent incident in 1993, when I became a victim, that was when they victimized me. They broke me mentally and emotionally. But prior to that, if I look at the incidents of bullying or tormenting or aggression that I faced prior to 1993 in my younger years, my teen years, my young adult years, I know that from those experiences that I was set up to fail. That I was not only set up to fail and on the X, as we call it, but I was conditioned to have what I call a prey mindset, which just again means that I was just ripe for the picking to become a victim of a violent assault. And I don't mean physically, I mean mentally and emotionally. But here's the thing, why I'm sharing this. Why do we tell different stories? Why do I share my story so often and in so many different ways and go back deep into my earliest memories and trying to recall the different times that I experienced aggression and violence? Why do I share with you, different stories of people that we've worked with over the years that have experienced everything from domestic abuse, women that were involved in extremely violent or extremely emotionally and mentally abusive relationships? Why do we deal and share stories about the number of kids that we've helped, to understand and process, the bullying that they're experiencing at school? Why do we share so many stories? Well, the reason we share all these stories is because everybody's starting line is different. And what you need to have is an experience or a story that you can relate to. Because everybody watching this right now is at a different place when it comes to understanding, or it has a different connection to the effects of aggression and violence. And so when you hear a story about when I was younger, when I was, in elementary school, and you hear about a time that I was, I had a year where I had to deal with a bully that was 2 grades older than me, that was bigger than me, that was stronger than me. And I had to deal with him and his friends. And, it was a constant daily thing. Or, telling you about times that I vividly remember, coming home and just dreading and fearing going to school the next day, and just like to the point of, literally crying yourself to sleep and then having to get up the next day and figure out, how to get through that day, and then just repeating that over and over again. You see, for some people, for some of you listening, you're a parent of a child who comes home from school and collapses on their bed and cries and becomes withdrawn and becomes introverted and, dreads going to school the next day. And why? It's because there's a student or a peer or someone older in that school that torments them every single day. And you see, that's your starting line. That's your start point. And so even as a parent, you say, listen, here's this guy that went through this, that experienced this, when he was that age. And now here he is, I just turned 47. And, my whole life, basically my entire adult life has been about studying aggression and violence. And it's about transcending past the pain and suffering. It's about helping people change the effects. So, the start point for you is that you can relate to that. You see that in your child and you say, listen, if this guy went through it and he's figured out ways to make it better, the knowledge I have now, if I'd have had somebody in my life that, if I could have access, if somebody would have told me, even in grade 4 or 5, even at that young age of 10 years old, if somebody could have explained to me what this was beyond just the fact that, this is bullying and we have a zero tolerance policy at our schools. But it doesn't feel like you have a zero tolerance policy because the bullying doesn't stop. A suspension doesn't stop the bullying all the time. Just being sent to the principal's office, doesn't stop the bullying all the time. So, but that's why I share that story. Then it might be, I share stories of the trauma that I experienced when I was in my teens. And, I remember one time being at a hockey camp and having to literally leave the hockey camp because at a group of adults, like grown adults that had threatened to beat the hell out of me. And I had to I had to flee. I had to get in my car and I had to leave the city that the hockey camp was in because they were looking for me over a 1.5 2 day period. And it's like as a 16-year-old having full grown adults, 6 or 7 of them trying to find you to beat the hell out of you. Scary, and it's so you share these stories. Why? And why do I share stories of kids that have come to us? We've had kids come to from across Canada, actually, that were assaulted, that were beaten up by 5, 6, 7 of their peers or are being threatened on a daily basis. And I share that story because there are people out there right now, whether it's you have teenagers that are listening to this or that will hear this at some point, or again, parents of these kids, that is where you're at. And that becomes your start line. And then of course I share my assault that happened to me in 1993 as a young man, and all of the effects that happened. So my story with today, and my point of today, is that everybody has a different start point. And what I want to do is I want to connect with you because I want you to understand that wherever you're at, it's a sliding scale. If you have been the target of aggression or violence and you are suffering from that and you identify yourself and say, I am the victim of, I am hurt, I am suffering. It has altered the way that I live my life. I live in fear. I fear going out of my house or my apartment. I got an email just the other day or about a few months back here, and a woman that was assaulted by 4 men and lives in fear and can't leave her apartment. But there's a process. There's a way that we can set people free from these chains, these fears that manifest in us. And the second we start to understand aggression and violence, the second we understand that there is a way through this. That we can't undo these things, but there is a way through this. In a way that you can process this, in a way that you can begin to change the effects. But see, for some people, they'll relate to that, they'll connect with that, and that's your start point. And it's only in those moments where you go, that's where I'm at, where you can relate, it's only once you find your start line that you can begin to change the effects of aggression and violence. So this is why we share these stories. This is why, it's so important for me to have a voice and to develop our platform to put this out there, because often aggression and violence, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're a young boy or a young girl, whatever your race, whatever your religion, whatever language you speak, whatever it is, the effects of it are the same. There's others out there that have experienced, and unfortunately, There is a kind of a code of silence around it. We as a society do not want to talk about it. We don't want to have to deal with it. And that unfortunately is amplifying the effects. It keeps us isolated, and it keeps people suffering alone. And one of the core concepts of psychology is that pain shared is pain divided. One of the most comforting things for us as human beings is that when we go through something, it's to find people that have experienced what we're going through, that have been there and done that have walked this path, and that right away eases our pain and suffering. It begins to change the effects. So again, just wherever you're at, however you're listening to this, whatever stage you're in your life, whether it's you that's experiencing, or it's your child, or it's a friend, or it's somebody you know, this is why it's so important to share our stories, to share these posts, to support this, to spread the message. It's nothing to do with me trying to market our business. It's understanding that we have got to put out there every single possible reference of pain and suffering due to aggression and violence at every age, for every gender, so that more and more people out there will find their start line. They will relate, they will connect, and they will see that there is hope. They will see that someone else has experienced it, someone has been there and done it, someone has moved through it. Someone has changed the effects of aggression and violence, someone has ended their pain and suffering. And that's the most important thing. So, it was more just something I was thinking about because this weekend, working with a few different people, and it just hit me how different the start line was for each of them. When we got talking about, what brought them to us, how they found us, what made them pick up the phone and make that first phone call or send that first email and come out and meet me, and then what ultimately got them into the first program and what that program was. And it was just so different. And I thought, there's got to be a pattern here. It can't just be eclectic. It can't be that random. There's got to be a pattern. And then it just hit me that the pattern was that at some point, in some way, somehow, they heard something from me, from someone that trained with us, a story, that related to them, where they were able to see that that's where they were. That became their start line. And the second they found their start line, that's when change began to occur. That's when they began to have the positive, change the effects of aggression and violence and have the positive influence and experience. So just an interesting concept I thought I'd share. I'm going to wrap it up there and get out and do my errands. I hope you're having a great day. It's a beautiful day here. It's a fantastic day. And that's it, everybody. So listen, as always, please share, subscribe, follow, rate, comment. Help us dial this in. Help us, just really reach more and more people to help them find their start lines. And of course, ultimately to help change the effects of aggression and violence and change the effects of aggression and violence in this world and end pain and suffering. And so listen, until next time, as always, please stay safe, stay ready. And remember, off that X is only one step away.
Want to awaken your protector within? If so, then head to awakentheprotectorwithin.ca and get your free Off the X training today.